Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Dr. Matchek noted, this is the last speaker of the 2012 Freedom Seminar, and I'd like you to give all the speakers that are still here a round of applause. I think they've done a great job. And also, I'd like you to give yourselves a round of applause. You have been a wonderful, wonderful group of students. It is my honor to present our last speaker, and then after Rabbi Spero is done, President Priddy, who has been so gracious with his busy schedule to be here, he's going to give you a couple of closing remarks, and we're going to get you off back home and get you to the typewriters so that you can do those final research papers for Dr. Ebling and for Dr. Matchek. It is my honor to present the closing speaker for the 2012 Northwood University Freedom Seminar. Rabbi Aryeh Spero is a graduate of John Carroll University. He went on and did his rabbinical studies in Cleveland and has been a rabbi since the age of 38. And he came to the faith in terms of being a man of the cloth a little bit later in life, and he has this wonderful combination of being an advocate of business. His family's been in a number of different businesses, and he is this wonderful combination of an individual who appreciates and understands business, understands what it means to be a business person, and also from the theoretical and practical how business applies to the theological. Rabbi Spero is a published author. You look at the major publications across the United States, including the Wall Street Journal. He has been published in business publications, in the popular press, in a number of theological and especially Jewish publications. He has addressed the National Press Club. He has addressed the U.S. government's Judicial Committee at the federal level. He has been a speaker and a presenter at the Heritage Foundation and numerous other venues across the United States. Dr. Priddy and I came across Rabbi Spero's recent piece in the Wall Street Journal. We were spreading it amongst our colleagues and some of our benefactors. Jack Miller, who is a very well-known business person, literally when he got a copy of it, he called the rabbi and had a long conversation with him. And Keith turned to me one day and says, "Tim, we ought to see if we can get the rabbi to speak at the Freedom Seminar." We called the rabbi, had a wonderful conversation with him, and he agreed to be our wrap-up speaker today, even though he was supposed to be at a bar mitzvah in Philadelphia. He has such a passion for liberty and the ideas that we stand for here at Northwood University that his wife, which I owe 6 dozen roses to, agreed to be there in his place or to represent the Spero family. So, ladies and gentlemen, speaking on the congruency of the Judeo-Christian ethos and capitalism in the Northwood idea, please welcome Rabbi Spero.
Thank you. President Priddy, Mrs. Nagley, thank you. Dr. Nash, for inviting me, thank you. And to all of you who have come today to this important conference. First, let me say it's an honor to follow Dr. George Nash. I've read your work many, many years ago, and regarding the cover on your original book, where you have photos of some of the great intellectual lights of the conservative movement, there were 3 of them that I personally met. One was the great William Buckley, who revived conservatism in America, and one was Bill Rusher, and the other was Irving Kristol. And if I could suggest one thing to those here, the younger people, if you can in your lifetime meet great men and great women, do so. You don't have to see them for 20 minutes. You don't have to hold them in discourse for an hour. But a few moments in the presence of great people who embody great ideas, who when you speak to them, the profundity of what is within them comes through their eyes to you. It will influence your life and make you greater. Only a few people in history, perhaps Immanuel Kant, St. Augustine, were those who could basically live a monastic life and reach tremendous intellectual heights. Most of us, because we're human and we're emotion-based, have to encounter and experience greatness to be elevated to greatness. So when you can, even when it comes to hearing a speaker, better to hear him live than over YouTube, because there's a charisma and a humanness that influences you when you hear someone directly more than when there is a partition between you two. We've come to speak about the morality of capitalism. Capitalism is not a dirty word. And let me announce here that capitalism is a moral system, and it's based on the morality as how the Judeo-Christian ethos through Genesis saw the individual. We are here today through the goodwill and sponsorship of individual people who allocated from their personal money to make it possible for all of us to be here together. Northwood University is made possible by the grants of people who see in it something so special that they want it to be carried forward to another generation, and they endow the school. Where does this money come from? It comes from business. And business is capitalism. Business can be a shop owner, but generally those people that have enlarged their wealth to the degree that they have wealth left over to share idealistically with institutions, they have made that money through the capitalist system. For the capitalist system says that when a person has a unique idea and he wants to bring that idea to market, he brings together like-minded investors who have faith in that idea, who believe in the people that will manage the production of that idea and distribution to the public, bringing together investors, financial investors, in behalf of promulgating, producing, and distributing an idea, a concept, into a tangible product is capitalism. And it's through capitalism that wealth is generated. Capitalism is relatively new. The idea of people banding together and investing in a product or investing in the people who produce a product, it really originated in Holland in the late 1500s. The Dutch West Indies Company was one of the early companies in history that was comprised of investors who had a great idea. Let's explore the new world. Let's settle the new world. Let's do something with the new world that can create wealth. And it's capitalism that produced modernity, the modern life that we have. We sit here and we eat wonderful food that is made better only because of capitalism. We're in a wonderful hotel that was built by a company that's a public company. We imbibe and we benefit from all these luxuries that the kings and the queens of the Middle Ages could never dream of, and for us it's commonplace, all because of capitalism. In my own lifetime, because of the miracle drugs that come from the drug companies in New Jersey and other places of the country, we live a life of 85 years old, where most of our life we can be productive. When I was your age, grandparents died at 60. They had a heart attack at 60. We didn't hear that much about cancer because people died from diseases that were onset in their younger time before cancer normally comes to people. Polio. When I was a youngster, we didn't go to public pools in the summer and swim because of the fear of polio. Then Dr. Sabin and Dr. Salk came, and they gave us the polio vaccine. And then I remember in schools, that vaccine was distributed. That was a wonderful thing. Not everything that government does is negative. Many things that it does are positive, but it must know its limits. But it's because of capitalism. Drug companies like Merck or Bristol-Myers or Pfizer, they have made our lives healthy and clean, enjoyable, given us a longevity. And that's good. Anything that gives to mankind a life better than man could ever by himself, without the help of others, achieved, is good and it is moral. Capitalism that gives us this wonderful life that we have today is thus a moral enterprise. The president tells me that as a young man, he was a member of the Green Bay Packers. Now, when I grew up, there was a tremendous rivalry. There were just basically four teams when I grew up in terms of importance. It was the Cleveland Browns, the Chicago Bears, the Green Bay Packers, and the New York Giants. The other teams were just merely fill-ins. They made the season possible. The Green Bay Packers was a consequence of people coming together, investing in a project that they thought would bring pleasure to people and provide them a profit. What would our life be without the Green Bay Packers, without the Chicago Bears? It's all part of our identity. It's all a consequence of capitalism. So why does capitalism have such a bad name? Well, besides the fact that we have people in universities, teachers, professors, not Northwood, and not all of them, but a lot of them, who don't like capitalism because it empowers people beyond that clique of professors. That's one of the reasons they don't like capitalism, because they feel intellectually superior to most of us. They would like to have a country run according to 5-year plans or 10-year plans where the brainy folks from different Ivy League schools or different colleges get together and plan the economy. Capitalism says no, we leave it to the people. Matter of fact, we believe in the practical genius of the people as much as we do in the eggheads in the university. And that's one of the reasons they don't like it. They have made capitalism a dirty word. Marx himself in Das Kapital made it a dirty word. You know, if you say something with a tone, with a condemning tone, automatically it sounds dirty. You say capitalism. Like they say Cheney, Quayle. Remember how they would say Cheney and Quayle, and you're supposed to say, oh, terrible men. I know Dick Cheney, and I know Dan Quayle. They're wonderful men, family men. They love the country. They're patriotic. They're religious. In many ways, they're altruistic, and they're selfless, and they're idealistic. But when enough people say Cheney, Quayle, capitalism, oh, you start to think that there's something wrong. Capitalism, not only is it moral, but I think as the speech unfolds, you'll see that capitalism is the wish of God for mankind, because God wants mankind to be healthy. He wants them to be productive. He wants people to get up in the morning with a sense of purpose, a purpose beyond praying, a purpose beyond eating. He wants man to get up in the morning and say, you know, Lord, I'm a creative human being, and I have potential to bring into this world that which was not here before. Or I have the potential to bring into this world something that was here before, but I will make better. And more people can avail themselves of this. This gives a person purpose. This is a reason to get up in the morning. Capitalism does that. And when you look at the good Lord, who I'm certain wants the best for his children, he wants his children to be healthy. He wants them to be creative. He wants them to have opportunity. We were created in the image of God. What does it mean to be created in the image of God? As God is creative, so are we creative. He wants us to have these opportunities because creativity only comes through the opportunity to be creative. If your desire to be creative is blocked, if you have no opportunity, sooner or later you'll give up and you won't be creative. Capitalism gives us this opportunity. It gives us this sense of purpose. It gives us this dignity. Some people look at capitalism in a negative light simply because it's not selfless. In the capitalist system, those that get up in the morning to produce, they produce, though, not only for the benefit of mankind, they produce in order to make a profit. They have a family to feed, or they have dreams. There are certain things that they want to acquire, or they want to be successful. Profit is a measure of success. Man has within him the desire to be successful, and he measures that success based on the profits of his company if he is in business. So some people say, well, you see, it's not selfless. It's not altruistic. There's something in it for me. There's something in it for the person who is the capitalist. There's something in it for the person that is the businessman. And therefore it doesn't equal communism, which is so idealistic. Each man according to his needs, from each man according to his ability. How idealistic. I work not for myself. I work in behalf of others. So people think that capitalism, since there is benefit to the producer, there's a little bit of selfishness, self-interest. It does not equal on a moral plane that of communism. Well, what's very important in this world, not the world to come, but in this world, when you judge something, it has to be judged by its efficacy. Does it work or not work? A theory that is merely a theory but remains unworkable has no value in this world. So let's look at those countries that are communist. Are the people healthy? No way. The people in the Soviet Union weren't healthy. They didn't have access to the drugs that we do. They didn't have the doctors that we do. They didn't have the homes, the transportation that we do, and therefore they didn't have the pleasure and delight in life that we have. Travel through America and basically you see people that smile, they're happy, they're good-natured because they like their life. Travel through the old Soviet Union or the Eastern Bloc countries, and it was one series of dour people after another. It's hard to be happy when you get up and you don't even have a toaster. Your plumbing doesn't work. There's no opportunity. There's no sunlight in your future. So let's look at those communist countries. They did not give the people health, longevity. They didn't give them a future and a daily bright life. So all theories aside, if you look at morality, and morality means that which should be, capitalism should be because it delivers. Communism is simply a theory. It does not deliver. It didn't deliver in Russia. It didn't deliver in Cuba. It doesn't deliver in North Korea. And it didn't deliver in North Vietnam. It doesn't deliver anywhere. Liberal professors would like you to believe that here it will finally, in a Western country, deliver. It won't. Look at England. When I grew up, England was still a country that was venerated. Although the empire no longer existed, after World War I, the British Empire started to decline, and by World War II, by 1948, most of its holdings were no longer part of the empire. But when I grew up, England was still a country that we looked up to. And now look at it. It doesn't have nearly the power it used to. Its citizens don't live like they used to. They don't have communism, but they have hardcore socialism. It's not good for the people. The average Englishman does not have anywhere near the opportunity that we have to choose a beautiful house, to choose from a multitude of careers, and certainly their health care in no way matches what we have. The other day I had a problem with my knee. I knew I had to come to the conference. I didn't want to miss the conference. I went to the doctor. I said, "Doctor, what's the problem with my knee?" He said, "Let's go take an MRI." In 1 hour, I was in another building getting an MRI. In England, some people have to wait 6 months to get an MRI. And it's not a knee problem that they have. It's a severe health problem. And within 6 months, if not detected, they're up meeting their Lord before it's their time. If they had lived in America, in a real capitalist system, they would have had an MRI within a couple of days, and their ailment might have been alleviated, and they'd be here to tell the story. So when you look at those countries that have socialism, you cannot call them moral paradigms, because the people through that system do not live a good life. Why does capitalism work? Because it's based not on selfishness, it's based on self-interest. Capitalism is not selfish. This country was built by great capitalists. Andrew Carnegie, who came here as a young man from Scotland, he had no money, but he built the steel business, started there in Bethlehem, went all across Pennsylvania, helped build the auto industry. Without steel, there's no autos. I grew up in Cleveland with Fisher Body, supplied all the chassis for up here in Detroit. Andrew Carnegie produced libraries for free libraries all across Pennsylvania. And that's because of the money that he made from capitalism. He was not selfish. He had self-interest. He wanted Bethlehem Steel to be the best, most productive, profitable steel company, but he wasn't selfish. Sears and Roebuck, one of the owners of Sears and Roebuck was a Mr. Rosenthal. I know his granddaughter. She lives in Manhattan. Mr. Rosenthal took the extra profits from Sears and Roebuck, and he took the landscape of the South and dotted it with free schools, elementary schools, for young black kids who he felt were not getting the proper education in the public school, because in those days the South was discriminating against blacks. All your symphony, all your orchestras in this country, they live off the endowments of businessmen who evidently are not selfish. This caricature that we see out of movies in Hollywood, where the businessman is always selfish, it's a deliberately noxious fabrication. Your libraries, your museums, your symphonies, every Mount Sinai, every Good Samaritan hospital, it's all 90% funded by corporations or individual businessmen. They are not selfish people. But self-interest is important. Look at a society like America. Look at other capitalist societies where people get up in the morning and they try to bring a product, but they have their self-interest in mind. They need to make a profit. Their ego is tied to it, and ego is fine. Ambition is fine, as long as it's reined in. But if a person identifies with that which he produces, that's good. That's what raises us above animals. We identify with that which is the product of our creativity. It's good to have that type of identification. Self-interest has produced this wonderful country. And where there's no self-interest, like in communist countries, because nothing goes to the person, you have poverty and misery and illness and people who live without purpose, without a smile. Self-interest is very important. That's the way God made human beings. They achieve through self-interest. In a communist system, if you have from each according to his needs, from each according to his ability, well, soon you find that there are a lot of people who decide that their needs can be met by others. And where maybe you start off with 20% of the people say, listen, my needs should be met by the abilities of others, it soon grows to 30%, 40%, 50%, 70% of the people are living off the work of others. And what happens to those who work? Well, sooner or later, when everything that they work for is taken from them, they become demoralized. They say, why should I work? In other words, why should I be a serf? In a certain sense, it's modern-day slavery. When you have a man work, and you take 75% or 70% or 60% of his earnings, and you give it to someone else, that man is basically a serf to those who are receiving those benefits. When you tell a man, you get up every morning at 5 o'clock and you work till 5 o'clock and you come home and all you do is sleep and eat because then you have to work because you have to, the money that you earn goes not for your wife, not for your children, not for your future, not for savings, but for someone else. You are a slave to that other person, and that's why it doesn't work. Self-interest is important. Because of self-interest, we become greater than we would be had everything been given to us. The purpose of man who was born into this world is not to end up the same way he was when he came into this world. We are supposed to be, at the end of our 70 or 80 years, substantially greater than the day when we came out of the womb and we cried. We're supposed to grow. What makes a person grow? Self-interest. Doing that which he loves. Doing that which means something to him. Doing that which will make his life possible. Make the life of his loved ones possible. That's self-interest. And what he does because of that is become a person greater than he was when he was born. He grows. There are some people in religion that basically think, certainly the socialists think that, but many even religious people think, we come here, we live 70 years, we're really not supposed to be that much different. We're just supposed to either pray or do certain rituals or be taken care of. That's not what it means to be created in the image of God. To be created in the image of God means that we grow. We become our full potential selves. Well, you only do that if there is self-interest. That's how God implanted it. You know, Aristotle told us, and we know this from ourselves, there are people that say we have to love everybody the same. They are all our children. What happens when you love everybody the same? You don't love anybody at all. There's a special affection and love that we have for our own children that we don't have for others. We have concern for others. But that special affection that we have for our children, it's unique. There were times, Plato's times, when people thought, no, this affection and love should be evenly distributed among all children, and you shouldn't give any special regard to your own children. But as Aristotle said, if you have to end up loving all children equally, you won't give any special attention. You won't even love your children more. Matter of fact, we love that which we provide our attention to, and we give our energies. We love that more. If you want love to come in your life, invest yourself in something. You see, socialism says you're a receiver. Socialism says there's nothing distinct. There's nothing special. We love those things that we put our personhood into. We put it into our children. We put it into our studies. We put it into our business. We put it into our congregation. We put it into our country. We love those things in which ourselves are invested. Because when you're invested in something, that thing that you're invested in represents you. It's a certain type of love of self. All of this happens because of self-interest. Those who open a business will find that after 20 or 30 years of being in that business, they are better and improved human beings. 6 days shall you work, and on the seventh day shall you rest. When I grew up, they emphasized on the seventh day you shall rest, the Sabbath. As I got older, I realized that just as important is the 6 days you shall work. What makes us grow, what gives us dignity, is work. When you go to work, number one, you have to learn certain good habits. You have to learn the habit of getting up in the morning. You have to learn the habits of grooming. If you want to sell a product, you have to create a personality that's amenable, that people like. You have to learn communication skills. You can have the best product in the world, but if you cannot communicate, sell it to someone, it just lies on the shelf. You learn grooming. You learn how to get along with coworkers. You learn punctuality. This is what work does. 6 days you shall work, not only because it gives you your harvest and your bounty, because it makes you a much better human being. There are no greater donors and generous people than businessmen. I was a rabbi in congregations for 35 years. I can tell you from my experience, when we had appeals, we needed pledges for certain projects. Businessmen gave much more generously than other groups of people. And the people that in my synagogue were not necessarily poor. They were lawyers, they were doctors, they were academics. I was right by NYU. A lot of the people in my synagogue were NYU people. Businessmen give more because businessmen have faith in themselves. A businessman doesn't merely look and say, well, I'm only making this much money. I better not give. No. A businessman lives with that hope that next year is going to be better. He's not as worried about pledging and giving. He has a confidence and says, you know, I can make that pledge because next year I've got this product coming out. I got the sales team. We're going to do even better. Also, a businessman invests. He invests in his business, and so he's more willing to invest in institutions. Lawyers are great, but the law profession as a profession is not an investment profession. Doctors are great, but as a profession, it's not an investment profession. A businessman, even if he's small, he's investing. Every money, every dollar he has is invested in that building. He gets used to investing in dreams. The first dream might be his business. The other dream might be an institution that he believes in. This all comes from free enterprise, which is a wonderful thing. The whole life that we take for granted now did not exist 120 years ago. When my grandfather was born, this life that we have today did not exist. There was no car. Grandpa Ben had no car. There was no airplane. There wasn't really a telephone. There weren't paved streets. There were no miracle drugs. Kids died. You know, my great-grandmother, we ended up with 4, but 9 were born. We didn't have any of these drugs. When I was a youngster, there was this new miracle drug that came out called penicillin. It was unbelievable. Before penicillin, winter was a dreadful thing. If you got what was called influenza, your mother was running to the synagogue praying, your father was out giving charity, you might not make it through the winter. Nobody has a question today, will I make it through the winter? But when I was a kid still, people didn't know, would they make it through the winter? Then, thank God, penicillin came and all these miracle drugs. We are the recipient of all this because of capitalism. When God created us, it says, in the image of God did he create man. What does that mean? It means that as God has intelligence, man has intelligence. Animals have intuition and maybe to a certain degree intelligence, but creative intelligence, that's unique to man. As God is accountable, we are accountable. We are accountable, and that therefore means we are personally responsible. We've been taught that morality means that you take care of everybody else who somehow doesn't want to get up in the morning or work, or everywhere else, or anyone who has some excuse about why he can't work. Morality, in my view, according to the Bible, is personal responsibility. The first moral responsibility that we have is to take care of ourselves. Those people who wish others to take care of them are engaged in that which is immoral. The first responsibility is not to take care of others, it's to take care of yourself. You are created as an autonomous human being, as a moral agent. That means you first must take care of yourself. And then the next, you must take care of any freely chosen obligation, any freely chosen relationship. You choose to marry a woman, you choose to marry a man, your moral obligation extends to them. You have freely chosen that relationship. You are morally obligated, first to them, then to your children, and then to your siblings, to your family. That is what it means to be a moral agent, personal responsibility. And it all ties down then to the individual. What makes America unique is that it took its attitude, its philosophy of life from the Judeo-Christian ethos that said God created man, the individual. God did not create an entire species at one time, an entire group at one time. He created man at one time, the individual. And the individual is godly because he is a morally responsible person with personal responsibility, accountable for his actions, accountable to take care of himself. That's what it means to be part of the American moral experiment, to take upon yourself these responsibilities. For many, it's just through work alone. But for others, it's to be creative. Until recently, most people did their work through, as the doctor said before, physical labor. We have benefited from three principles. Number one, Newton showing us that there is a scientific method, that if you want something to be done, if you have a dream, if you want something to happen, it is possible if you follow a scientific step, a scientific method. People who lived way before, if they wanted something, never conceived of the idea, well, how do I make that solution happen? This idea that if you have a problem, you can make a solution, this is relatively modern. But what capitalism does is it says to the person that not only can you come up with that solution using the foundations of Newton, but you can benefit from that solution beyond your immediate need by selling it and distributing it to the public. And that's made possible through investors who believe in your idea and who believe in you as a person to create that idea. All of our rights are given to us as individuals. When the Bible account in Genesis talks about creating man, the individual, is to tell us that our rights come to us as an individual. Our relationship to God is direct, being individuals. This identity is under assault. This identity is called the Judeo-Christian ethos. And when I talk about the Judeo-Christian ethos, I'm not talking about any type of religious ritual. I'm not talking about a creed. I'm talking about an attitude, a philosophy. Until the formation of America, countries were run either by kings, and in the case of Europe, the kings were replaced by the state. And where the king had his noblemen, the state had bureaucrats. America said no. According to the Judeo-Christian ethos, each man has been endowed with liberty by God, and he has a right to his life, the right to the pursuit of private property, and of course he has a right to liberty. That is the unique American identification, and it's under assault. The problem that I have with class warfare is twofold, because we do now see an assault in the name of class warfare, the 1%, and don't think it will stop at the 1%. After they get the 1%, it will be the 5%, and then it will be the top 10%, and I'm from that 10%. You don't have to earn that much money to be from the top 10%. If you spend 40 years working hard and saving, hopefully you'll be from that top 10%. So don't think that, okay, they can go after the 1%, it won't affect me, because it will go down to the 10%. But what do I have against class warfare? Besides that, it will bring socialism. And everywhere you look, even a country like England, you see what socialism does to decline a country. I don't like it because what it does, it embitters people. It's based on envy. It's based on resentment. It's making people envious and bitter against those other people that were successful. And it does so by saying they achieve their success dishonestly. It's not so. My grandfather started a business, carried on by my father. They were not dishonest people. When workers need loans, my grandfather and father would lend workers loans interest-free. I remember coming home from school many times, and my father would tell my mother, Florence, there's no pay this week because we didn't have enough money. We have to pay the workers. That's our first obligation, so we're going to hold off this week. And sometimes we'd go 3 weeks or 6 weeks, no paying coming home, because my father was the boss and he had to pay his workers first. Businessmen did not get to where they got by cheating. And if they do, sooner or later they're caught, as they should be. Most people in this country are fair-minded, but they work hard, and that's how they achieve their business, and that's how they achieve their success. When you talk about class warfare to a people, and you deliberately, in order to win an election or to have people become your voter, tell them that you're not as wealthy as the 1%, to the 5%, to the 10%, to the 15%. You're trying deliberately to sow envy in their heart. That's sinful. The Ten Commandments starts out with, I am the Lord your God, there shall be no other God. And it ends with, do not be envious of your neighbor, not his wife, not his property, not his holdings. Because the tendency of man is to be envious. Some people are more successful because they've tried harder. Some people are more successful because they have better brains or they have talent. There are different forms of success. And some people are more successful simply because of the luck of the draw. But what destroys society is collective envy. And when you have people standing up trying in order to win an election to make you envious, to make you resentful, to make you bitter, that's sinful. Not only is it the expression of a wrong political paradigm, not only is it the realization of the wrong economic paradigm, socialism, but it is a deliberate attempt in the name of politics to soil the soul of human beings. Human beings should not grow up in souls that are embittered, resentful, envious, jealous. They should grow up with a sense of brightness, feeling that they have a chance, not envy their neighbor. It's a sinful thing. It has greater implications than simply economic implications. It spoils the collective soul of a nation, and it ruins the chances of individuals. I, as a rabbi, have seen the difference between congregants who have come over as embittered people, as opposed to people who want something, but they're not led by bitterness or resentment. The identity of this country, and let me conclude with this, is for all of you here a personal matter. You will strive and you will get ahead if this country is open to you with the opportunities that I had, the president had, and my grandfather had. But if socialism, which is what today's left liberalism is, if socialism takes reign, your opportunities will be so limited. You won't have the chance to reach the dreams that we did, and to reach those dreams, you'll have to work so much harder. What's going on now, the debates in this country over capitalism, it's not a coarse question. You have to understand this is personal. From my grandfather's time on and from before him, the promise to the individual American was made possible because of free enterprise, because of capitalism. And that's your future. This is a personal fight. The identity of America is not some academic question. The American future depends upon it. Western civilization depends upon it. I remember England when it was a strong country. Their defense is nothing the way it used to be. Without an America to defend freedom and liberty, there will not be liberty in this world. Liberty is not something that's granted. We all grow up thinking that liberty is a given, that this lifestyle is a given, simply because we live in the year 2012. 2012 is not a permanent imprint on modernity. Modernity resides not because we're in 2012, but because the application of modern ideas rooted in capitalism, the Judeo-Christian ethos. Take this fight personally. When there's a statistic that 19%, as Dr. Nash mentioned, don't affiliate with religion, or they don't think religious identification is important. It is important. It's the Judeo-Christian ethos that puts paramount on the individual and lets the individual grow. It's the Judeo-Christian ethos, unique among every and all religious outlooks, that is advocates free markets and capitalism. That's for another lecture. But if you look through the Bible, it advocates capitalism, free markets, and opportunity. So when you learn about your economics, remember it's more than just simply getting a good grade. Your future, the survival of this country, the best country that ever was, better than even the times of King David and King Solomon. And the survival of Western civilization depends upon a strong America that's not weighed down by such obligations of entitlement and socialism and welfare state programs that there's nothing left to defend the country. I envy you because you're now embarking on that great period where you'll be out in the public square and you'll be able to join the battle. This has been my battle for 40 years, but I'm becoming an older warrior. And I look to you as the recruits, the fresh recruits, joining this battle, this struggle for the American identity. I wish you Godspeed. Happy are those that can join a transcendent struggle. The struggle today confronting the country is not about this amount of taxation or this highway road. Great monumental ideas. And lucky are you to be part of this battle. I bless you. I thank Northwood for being an institution that will shine forth this beacon of liberty and understands how business, economic freedom is essential for political freedom. Poor people do not have political freedom. It's robust people that can fend for themselves that have the courage to express themselves politically. And I hope that my children and grandchildren will be around to inherit the America that we inherited. God bless America, and God bless you all.
Well, that was a very rousing presentation. I feel like it was a Jewish altar call, capitalist altar call. Should we ask questions at this point? Do you have questions, or?
All right. Earlier you said that businessmen to invest in themselves and the institution is moral. But what happens when a corporation spends money to influence government to vote certain ways, to give them subsidies and tax breaks? Is it moral for a business to do that, even though it might not be beneficial to society? It's just that business?
It's very hard for me to imagine that there's anything, any product that is so detrimental to society. All of life is based on persuasion. As you get older, you'll see that everything that you're doing is to persuade. You're trying to persuade the person that supplies you a paycheck that you're doing a good job. You try to persuade your children to follow a certain way. You're trying to persuade your wife. It's all persuasion. Corporations who have a product have a right to try to persuade people to the benefits of their product. It would be very hard for me, unless it's pornography or something like that, it's very hard for me to see any product that is essentially evil. Most people, if they produce a product, and most products that I see, anything that's involved, even the chemicals. Listen, you can't have these buildings without chemicals. Without DuPont and without Dow Chemical, all these things that you think are chemical that we have, they wouldn't be possible. There's hardly a product that I can think of that is incarnate evil, and therefore everyone has a right to try to persuade those who are in power or in office or communications as to the benefits of their product. Part of persuasion is money. We use money all the time. When someone donates to a school, to a church, when someone donates to a liberal cause, they're donating in order to have that cause persuaded through communication. We can't raise the bar so high on capitalism that every CEO has to be a choir boy. We understand that capitalism in and of itself has to be regulated like everything else. There's no such thing in life that's not regulated. Matter of fact, we have a whole, I love mankind, and so does God, but he gave us a Bible that's all types of regulations for man. How man has to live, what he can do, what he can't do. There's nothing more noble than man. He's a little lower than angels, yet he has to be regulated. So of course business has to be regulated, as does government. When do you know when regulations are too much? When the regulations are so overbearing that people can no longer invest, they can no longer make a business, they're afraid to invest, then you know the regulations are too much. But let's not require that businessmen be choir boys, where actually people in government, bureaucrats, could be slumlords.
Other questions? Well, in that case, we have a question here.
I've noticed personally through experience and like just watching the news and everything that God is kind of being taken out of things in this country, whether it's normal life or just the money, everything like that. So what is steps, because I personally believe that our country was founded on beliefs outside of ourselves and something like God. And what steps could we take as a nation to fix that from being changed?
There's no question the founding fathers were religious. They weren't religious in the sense they didn't go to church every day, but they were religious men, because if you look at their discussions, it all revolves around different passages from Scripture. They were motivated by Scripture. They believed in Scripture. They weren't holy rollers, but they were religious men, and it was Thomas Jefferson who said, the God who gave us life gave us liberty. And they also felt that our rights don't come from government, but they come from God. Some people call it natural rights, but most of them believe that our rights come from God. So it was a country founded on the belief in God. There's no question that the left, socialist left, and they are socialists. They're not liberals. Henry Jackson, who I knew, was a liberal. I knew Hubert Humphrey. He was a liberal. I knew many liberals. Sam Nunn was a liberal. Nancy Pelosi is not a liberal. She's a socialist, a wealthy socialist. Lenin was also from the upper classes. Barack Obama is a socialist. There's no question about it. People are afraid to say it, but he's a socialist. Socialists are not that inclined towards religion, because a socialist wants the state or the elites to determine the fate of a country, and religion has its own view of how a country should be run. And so they're often at odds. What the president said, and I'll end with this, the president in his first year talked about freedom of worship. Boy, did that ring a bell in me. Because I was raised with the First Amendment, George had said freedom of religion, not freedom of worship. Freedom of worship implies something that's confined to the four walls of a building, of a church or a synagogue. This country wasn't founded simply on the right to go to the church and synagogue on Sunday or Saturday and for 2 hours and pray. It's freedom of religion. Our whole public atmosphere is infused with religion. Our attitudes, our belief, our philosophy. So there's no question all these attempts to take down the Ten Commandments, which is the cornerstone of much of our beliefs. Don't murder, don't steal, don't covet. Unless you're in class warfare, you believe in covet. The idea of a day of rest, the dignity of man. We're not serfs. We're not the idea of believing in God who gives us rights. All of this attempt to erase that, to forbid that, to forbid any expression of religion is part of the left-wing socialist agenda. What you have to do, and you guys can do it because you're young. I used to do it, but you get older and your energy is sapped. You have to protest it. You have to protest it. You have to be people of action. The men that founded this country were not simply academics. They would have liked to have been, but they were men of action. They were men of honor. They gathered together. They did things. The Boston Tea Party, the Minutemen, the founders, these were men of action. They went into their carriages, left their homes, left their farms, and they went into action. And they were ready to sacrifice their lives. What's going to be required is a public outcry, an action. You go to a city council. You go to a community organization. You go to your congressman. You go to your local people. You go in front of the place where they're taking away the Ten Commandments, and you assemble 20 kids, and you put up posters and say, no, we want it. You've got to make it as difficult for the left as they have made it for us. It's very interesting. It's our speech that is censored. It's our actions that are censored. But we don't try to likewise make it difficult for the left to implement their agenda. So you've got to be out there. And you're young, and you can do it. You've got the energy. and will make you a greater person. The most important thing in life, beyond character, is courage. But courage has to be earned. The more courageous acts you do, the more courage you'll have. The more you're confronted with something where your stomach and the butterflies say, no, 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 but you overcome it and you do it, you wake up the next morning a more courageous person.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Spero. I would now like to invite President Keith Priddy to dismiss the class.
Dismiss the class. That's what you want me to do, huh? Yeah. Well, after those two very powerful presentations, Rabbi Spero, thank you so much. George, thank you. And I hope all of you have benefited for the last 3.5 days, starting with Dr. Cox, and all of these speakers have been brought here for you. This is not an easy thing to do. This is the 34th annual Freedom Seminar. And for 34 years, your alma mater has been helping young people just like yourselves to understand the values that the rabbi has just shared with you and all of these speakers have shared throughout the last 3.5 days. You know, 34 years, I want to put this in context for you. Our own Dr. Nash, Tim Nash, came to the Freedom Seminar as a student. He's had the opportunity throughout his lifetime to learn and to continue to learn the values of capitalism, of free markets, of personal responsibility, and the things that we believe very deeply in at Northwood University. The things that you've heard throughout these last 3.5 days. And the things that we believe are going to make a huge difference in your lives going forward. There's lots of great colleges and universities around the country. There are wonderful places that I guarantee you could get a fine education. But you're getting a real business education, and you're getting an education in some of the things that maybe are even more important. The issues that you heard about today of investing in yourselves. As entrepreneurs, you have to have confidence. You have to be thinking about how you can make a difference. Because if you do, you will generate wealth for yourself. You will generate opportunity for others. You will generate creativity. I hope it hasn't been lost on you that while you've been pretty much locked in this little room for the last 3.5 days, there's been a lot going on in the world. And a young man who's only 28 years old, his business went public on Friday, and at extraordinary numbers. A business that you're all familiar with, Facebook. A business that has a value of wealth that was incalculable. And still is questioned by many, quite candidly, but for the moment is creating significant wealth, and that hopefully will be used in very appropriate ways. But the future is in your hands. The rabbi said it very, very clearly. You are our future. Your creativity, your understanding of the values that come from a freedom seminar and an education like you're getting at Northwood University and hopefully applying in the world is what will sustain all of us going forward. And so whether it's the rabbi or me or Dr. Nagley or Dr. Nash, we're looking forward to your success. We're going to do everything in our power to help you to be successful going forward today and every day from here forward. I want you to look forward to your opportunity to get into the business world and make a big difference. And use what you've learned here at Northwood. Use what you've learned here in the last 3.5 days to go and make a difference this summer. And when you come back to school in the fall, or for some of you, I think I saw some of you, I shook some of your hands in the last couple of weeks at graduation. Some of you have already walked, and I realize this is your last class or two, and you're going to be out making a difference. But I hope you'll remember what you've learned here. This is an opportunity that not every school provides. We're very proud of it, but I hope you have thanked significantly Dr. Matchek, Dr. Ebling, Dr. Nash for putting this together. This is not an easy endeavor to do. And it does come together in odd ways, because Tim and I literally read the rabbi's piece in the Wall Street Journal and looked at one another and said, that is a man we have to get. Our students need to hear him. And we are so fortunate that he has joined us today. So I hope you will, before you leave here today, or in your essays, or throughout the remaining work that you have to do to complete these courses, I hope you will say thank you to the opportunities that have been put in front of you. And most important, and the best way you can say thank you is just to go and, as the rabbi said, invest in yourselves and carry this forward. Use your creativity to make a difference in the world of enterprise. Thank you all for being here this weekend. And I guess if there aren't other logistical details, they all know their assignments, they all know everything that they have to do going forward, you are dismissed.